Hello and a very warm welcome to Matchpoint, CCTV's new program that's centered around African sports stories from across the continent. I'm Mahe Mutua. Wherever you're tuning in, welcome to what might be our second last show of the year 2014. Let's take a look at our highlights tonight. Zimbabwe Cricket coach dismissed just 2 months ahead of the ICC World Cup. African teams missing from Club World Cup finals. What ails the beautiful game on the continent? And we tell you about the extraordinary achievements of a Special Olympics swimming champion. Now, Zimbabwe Cricket has relieved Stephen Mangongo of his duties as national coach of the men's team. His dismissal comes 2 months ahead of the ICC World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Mangongo has instead been reassigned to the under-19 national setup.
Steve Mangongo has always been in the headlines. Last year, he became the first black to take charge of Zimbabwe in a test match. Just 4 months ago, he coached Zimbabwe to its first win over Australia in 31 years. But that was the only victory he tasted during his 5-month-long full-time tenure. That famous August afternoon seems like a lifetime ago now. His most recent headline-making feat was a humiliating back-to-back ODI and Test Series whitewash by Bangladesh last month. The defeats sank Zimbabwe to the bottom of the Test rankings and have now cost Mangongo his job.
If you talk to a lot of cricket fans in this country, that decision was long overdue. Even before that Bangladesh debacle, there's always been a lot of misgivings about the job. A lot of people felt that in the first place his appointment was the wrong decision.
But what's more worrying is the timing of the axing, just 8 weeks before the World Cup.
If they wanted to have replaced the coach, they should have replaced the coach before the Bangladesh tour, because they would have had ample time to work with the team, get his combinations right.
A new gaffer will be installed after Christmas and will have less than 2 months to get the charges ready for a massive challenge.
Well, it seems for Zimbabwe's cricket, it never rains but pours. Yet again, turmoil ahead of a major tournament. Less than a year ago, the team went to the T20 World Championships short of crucial game time because the domestic league had been suspended because of a lack of funding. They went on to be eliminated from the preliminary stages of that tournament, and one hopes this latest setback will not result in a similar outcome at next year's World Cup. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Right now, for more details on this story, we're joined by Farai Mwakutuya, who joins us on the line from Harare. Farai, given the timing of the removal of the Zimbabwe cricket coach, what can you tell us the reaction has been like from that end?
Well, certainly the reaction has been mixed. On one hand, many thought Steve Mangongo was out of his depth and there were better suited coaches available. On the other hand, though, others think that the current administration was fully behind Mangongo, especially after he came back from that tour in Bangladesh, where the board was in full support of him. So it comes as a bit of a surprise, and especially given the timing of the axing, as you quite rightly say, just 2 months ahead of a major tournament, it could potentially destabilize the camp. So mixed reaction. Some saying yes, some saying perhaps we should have waited. Julio.
Farai, of course, it is a tricky, just 8 weeks away from the Cricket World Cup. When is a new coach likely to be appointed, and when will there be sufficient time for him to prepare the team for the ICC World Cup?
Well, according to the announcement from Zimbabwe Cricket, a new coach will be announced after Christmas. So it's not clear if that will be on the 26th or 27th, before New Year's or after New Year's. So we could guess when that could be. But whatever timeline it is, it's less than ideal preparations, given the fact that it's 2 months to the next World Cup. However, the pool of players is unlikely to change. It will probably remain the same. But there is the issue of the new coach trying to impose their philosophy and their style of play on the team. Unfortunately, though, a major thing is that between now and the World Cup, Zimbabwe doesn't have any competitive games, so it doesn't give it, the sort of edge or preparation that this country needs ahead of that tournament.
All right, Farai, thank you very much for that. That is CCTV's Farai Mwakutuya joining us live on the line from Harare, talking to us about the Zimbabwe men's cricket coaching situation. Well, while the men's team undergoes management changes, the women's team is doing much better than their male counterparts. The Zimbabwe women's senior cricket side secured a place at the 2015 International Cricket Council World 2020 qualifiers after beating Tanzania by 6 wickets in a match played in South Africa.
In Zimbabwe's capital Harare, many fans, including cricket analyst and the commentator Dean du Plessis, followed the match against Tanzania. For many in the capital, the fact that the team is beginning to get the recognition it deserves is a good thing. Cricket analyst and commentator Dean du Plessis was among those who followed the match.
The nice thing is that women's cricket is beginning to make strides, and a lot of people will be saying, yeah, but they're only beating very, very minor teams who aren't really recognized. But the point is that they are making strides, and that's exactly what you want to see. So you've got to crawl before you can walk and before you can run. And right now, the Zimbabwe cricket team, I think, have got to, beyond the crawling stage, and they're beginning to take little tottering steps.
However, the women's side still has a long way to go to catch up with the men's game, both in popularity and status.
The public will be very happy about women's cricket because it's not popular in Zimbabwe, especially when the big boys, they lost 9-0 in Bangladesh. So it's an achievement for the women's team. They are going somewhere.
But the team is on a roll. Only this week, the team managed victory over Namibia, who many consider a much tougher opponent than Tanzania. Du Plessis, however, warned that even though the Zimbabwe team performed well, financial constraints within the country's cricket union could be a stumbling block for the team.
The unfortunate situation with women's cricket in this country is that it's a sport that is really, really struggling, more so than the men's side, because of the financial constraints that Zimbabwe Cricket are currently experiencing.
The 2015 International Cricket Council World T20 Qualifiers Tournament will be held in Thailand, and thereafter the ICC Women's World 2020 Tournament in India in March 2016. Robert Soy, CCTV.
Right, moving away from cricket, as the continent prepares for yet another Africa Cup of Nations, the standard of the sport in the domestic leagues is coming under scrutiny after its 2 representatives at the 2014 FIFA Club World Cup registered mixed fortunes in Morocco. Investment in the sport remains the biggest hurdle for many countries in growing their domestic football, but some analysts believe countries also need to stem the mass exodus of players to Europe at an early age.
African fans love their football, but many a times they have very little to cheer about. Morocco has one of the most vibrant domestic leagues in Africa, and so when league champions Maghreb failed to match Raja Casablanca's run at this year's FIFA Club World Cup, questions were raised over the quality of its league. But African football commentators say their early exit was expected.
If you look at the Moroccan team, it's a small team. It was a big surprise even in Moroccan football that they won the league. So people were not really expecting a lot from them.
World stage success remains quite elusive for African teams, be it on club or country level.
All our best and good players, they live in a very young age. They leave to Europe. So that's probably one of the reasons why African clubs don't do very, very well in these tournaments.
Africa's big talents like Didier Drogba and Samuel Eto'o moved to Europe early in their teenage years in pursuit of the football dream. An exodus necessitated by a poor state of domestic football in many African countries. Football in the continent struggles with some leagues barely professional, others grapple with poor administration, infrastructure, and most are underfunded.
There is money, but we don't know exactly where this money is going. Definitely not on the national teams or the club teams. So it's a big problem, and it needs a lot of rethinking, and we need to really think very hard to solve all these problems because it's getting worse and worse.
Dr. Alamin is from Sudan, a country which was one of the founders of AFCON, winning the title in 1970. But since then, they have struggled to even qualify for several tournaments, including the 2015 edition.
Well, the way forward is really going to the basics. We don't have the basics in Sudan, and probably that's the case in most of African countries, except a few of them. We have the talent. We have a lot of talent, actually. But we don't know how to invest in this talent. We don't know how to grow this talent. We have to go to the youth system.
Now, the solutions to some of Africa's footballing problems are well known by administrators across the continent. But in many of these countries, the problem often lies with their implementation. Celestine Karone, CCTV in Marrakesh.
Shifting gears now from grass to sand, beach soccer is one sport benefiting from football's world governing body FIFA's attention, and that bodes well for nations like Uganda. The country's coaches are taking courses to improve their skills as they look to take the lead in developing the emerging sport within the region. Leon Sinyange now reports.
Uganda hopes to be among Africa's best on the sand, and there's enough confidence about the growth of the sport here to attract FIFA's attention.
Good that they have a league for beach soccer. They have a senior league, they have a university league, they have a school, they have a women. So this is showing that they are really working hard in beach soccer, and good that they start a national team. I think it's a good start for beach soccer in Uganda.
The world football body FIFA is helping Uganda improve the technical abilities of its players and coaches. It will also support the development of infrastructure.
What is important for them now to have an international standard beach soccer pitch, because this one is okay for now, but they should have a proper one with the standard measurement. I think they have next step, they are going to do that, I'm sure.
The energy-sapping sport now boasts over 300 players in Uganda. Beach soccer used to be less spectacular here, and for a country that took up the game more recently, putting more emphasis on the tactics and the physical aspects of the game is helping teams be able to compete better against the more technically gifted sides. Over 90 coaches have now undergone training in the basics of the sport.
We've played this game for the last 7 years, but you'll find that the first 4 years we were simply playing grass football onto the sand. Now, ever since we've been having these courses, we've seen that players are now trying to include in the technical parts of the game, like bicycle kicks, flipping the ball and you shoot. Majorly, the game is all about football control and you playing air football instead of ground.
The lack of exposure and shoestring budgets for beach soccer means the sport faces challenges, but it continues to experience steady growth.
This year we extended the participation in schools, and all these schools didn't have coaches to have to impart the basics of the laws of the game, and technically to have credible people to work out in these schools. Then we have even the university championships. All these are expanded areas that need trained coaches.
The country's national team will take part next year in its first international tournament, the Africa Championships in Seychelles. Regardless of the results, officials feel participating will be a significant breakthrough as the sport seeks to reach new heights. Leon Sinyange, CCTV, Entebbe.
Let's take a quick break here on Matchpoint. We return with more sporting action, including how the Ebola outbreak has brought sporting activities to a standstill in Liberia. And we tell you about the extraordinary achievements of a Special Olympics swimming champion.
Terrific dunk right there.
Welcome back to Matchpoint. Now imagine for a moment if you couldn't play sport. Imagine if your government banned all group sporting activities, which meant that any and all league games were banned. Imagine if you were a soccer or basketball player and you weren't allowed onto a field or court. Angelo Coppola reports about a real-life situation that bears all these attributes.
Now stop imagining and just consider for a second that this is the reality that many hundreds of thousands of people in Liberia, young and old, are living under. They're living under the threat of Ebola and its devastating consequences.
The country's government banned all soccer and basketball games and competition at the height of the Ebola outbreak for fear of the disease spreading. Body contact, sweat, open wounds, these were all concerns. Monrovia has been badly affected by the ban. The country's soccer league is centered in the capital. One stadium is taking advantage of the ban and is being renovated. Another ground, the home of the BYC, owned by the president's son, Robert Sirleaf, boasts an AstroTurf, but it's empty, people milling around in the shade, waiting. The National Stadium has been turned into a giant Ebola treatment center, on the other hand, ringed by fences and covered with shade cloth to protect the privacy of ill patients. Meanwhile, the league players spend their spare time in the gym trying to stay in shape. Occasionally, pickup games happen. These games are spontaneous, but the players are careful. It's almost a form of touch rugby. There is hardly any body contact. And the possibility that the government will lift the ban soon? Well, that remains a remote dream. Ebola cases continue to be reported, and it seems like the president's wish that there will be no new reported cases by the end of the year remains far-fetched.
So the ban remains for those basketball players and those football players. And they're probably thinking perhaps in January, perhaps we can start playing then. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in Monrovia, Liberia.
Now, Burkina Faso is ranked 16th in African basketball. The sport, though, is marred with plenty of challenges. The team made its first appearance in an international competition back in 2013. The national team has since then failed to participate in any other major competition. However, the country is now working hard to make its presence felt on the international stage. It recently organized a national tournament aimed at boosting the status of the sport there. It also procured the services of a French coach, Jean-Paul Robatet, to lead the national team. The country has also been selected to host the qualifiers of the African Championship of Basketball Champion Clubs.
The Burkinabe basketball is doing better because after 50 years, this is the first time that Burkina participates in an African basketball championship. So for us, it's going better. The federation is doing a great job, but the country being what it is, added to the fact that we give everything to football, hand sports are neglected. We cry all the time, and it is a reality. There are no sponsors.
We have set up a federal center which is managed by the federation and is supervised by the national coaches. And we make our selection by detection at the very level teams of the very young, with whom we work and expect already to see them on both the national and international stages.
Now, Egypt hosted the Middle East and North Africa Special Olympics this year. Among the many contestants, one stood out in particular, a young Egyptian with Down syndrome. She has been the free and crawl swimming champion for many years now. Adel El Mahrouki has more.
Lobna Mustafa is a truly remarkable Egyptian swimming champion. The 20-year-old young lady has maintained that title for 14 years in all national special needs competition. For 7 consecutive years, she's kept her title as the Middle East and North Africa champion. And her family says her 2007 100-meter freestyle world record in the Special Olympics in Shanghai remains unbeaten.
Hi, my name is Lobna and I'm a swimmer.
Lobna has been bravely bearing a medical condition. She has Down syndrome. Doctors say she has a brain of a 7-year-old with learning and speech disabilities. When she was 3, she started swimming as part of her physiotherapy. That's when her parents discovered her extraordinary talent.
We invested in a private training. She got trained with normal kids. When I saw she was not far behind, then I thought we should do more. I wished that she would beat them and become an internationally recognized athlete.
Her mother was a history teacher. She quit her job and studied to become a special needs teacher. It was not just to help Lobna, but to change the prevailing stereotypes.
Many people told me, "Why are you doing this?" They thought that we can't improve mental disability, but because of my study, I had a target to change people's perception, and thank God, besides sports, she talks well to people. Some think the mentally disabled tend to be violent, but Lobna is very social.
The parents are also Lobna's sole sponsor in her sporting engagements. Although she's been the country's champion for years, the government has not been supporting her sports career.
There are many parents who have kids that put Egypt's flag up in the sky with other winners. I wish the country would just treat them equal to those who have motor disability or hearing disabilities. If Lobna wins any medals, they have no rights. But someone with motor disability gets a gold Special Olympics, like the one Lobna got. He will be rewarded with £150,000 and get a monthly pension for life.
For years, the Egyptian special needs athletes have been achieving more Olympic medals than regular athletes. Yet the government spends most of its sports budget on the regular teams.
With limited resources, Lobna managed to become a remarkable champion. Her parents hoped that one day the government would realize that with more support, Lobna and many athletes like her could achieve more, not just for themselves, but for the country. Adel Mahroui, CCTV, Cairo.
Absolutely heartwarming. Now it's time for another quick break here on Matchpoint. Still ahead, we review the performance of South African golfers in 2014. Welcome back. Now for this week's Matchpoint Top 5, let's take a look at the top 5 Club World Cup goal scorers of all time from Africa. Number 5 on our list is from Egyptian giants Al Ahly. 31-year-old veteran Emad Motab scored 2 goals in 9 matches of the tournament, both for the North African side. He is one of the 2 Al Ahly strikers on this list that form what many defenders in the game know as the Bermuda Triangle. And number 4 is Bedi Mbeza of TP Mazembe. The Democratic Republic of Congo player scored 2 goals in 5 appearances of the tournament. Those came during his stint at the club, which ran between the years 2007 and 2011. Mohsin Yajour is 3rd on our list of all-time African goal scorers at the tournament. He too scored 2 goals in 5 appearances for his club Raja Casablanca of Morocco, but is rated higher than Mbeza due to a better disciplinary record. For the record, Mbeza has 2 yellow cards to his name in the tournament. Flavio Amado, or just Flavio, is a former Al Ahly striker. The Angolan footballer appeared for the team between 2005 and 2009. In that time, he scored 3 goals for the Egyptian club in 6 appearances at both the 2006 and 2008 editions of the tournament. So at number 1 on our list of top African Club World Cup goal scorers is another Al Ahly player, a second of the club's lethal Bermuda Triangle strike force. Mohamed Aboutrika scored 4 goals in 11 matches for the Cairo Red Devils to land top of our list. Incidentally, he also holds the record of 2nd highest goal scorer of all time in the competition, behind Argentinian Cesar Delgado, who is the outright leader of all time. Now, 2014 has been far from a vintage year for South African golf. A poor showing, especially in the majors, has seen the country's top players slip down the world rankings. But the likes of Louis Oosthuizen remain confident there will be plenty to celebrate in 2015.
South African golfers could be forgiven for wishing 2014 to end. A year that promised much came to very little. The country's players picked up 4 major trophies in as many years between 2008 and 2012. But there hasn't been a major triumph since, although the players are confident they can turn that around in 2015.
Next season hopefully would be a bit better. You know, all of us has gone through something, whether it's personal or just injuries or whatever, but hopefully next year we can we can get back to that form that we want to be. You know, I think us youngsters need to step up.
Tim Clark won the so-called fifth major, the Players' Championship, in 2010. But he's had a nightmare run of injuries since. Although he flew the flag for African golf this year and was the only South African to win on the PGA Tour in 2014, claiming the Canadian Open.
Anytime you can grab a win out there means it's been a good year, and unfortunately there was some inconsistency in there, but a win makes up for a lot of that. You know, maybe I need to refocus myself on majors again. You know, when you have injury like I had 4 years ago, you're just trying to get back to playing golf again and competing just at a regular level. So now that I feel I've done that, I think I can start looking at majors again, and obviously that would cap a career, and not to say it's an easy thing to do, but it would be nice to sort of focus in on those majors.
Louis Oosthuizen also appears to be on his way back after a torrid year, struggling with a back injury. And for him, there's a further reason he feels 2015 could be a vintage year, with the Open Championship returning to St Andrews, the venue of his major triumph in 2010.
I love that golf course. You know, I always play well there, so I'm looking forward to the Open next year. I just need to get the game good at that stage for that week, but you know, I think if you can play well before that to get some momentum going and some confidence going, then it should be good.
South Africa has provided more major winners post-war than any other country other than the USA. So although the last couple of years have disappointed, the players will get an early chance to gain some momentum with the South African Open due for Johannesburg in January. Dan Williams, CCTV, Sun City, South Africa.
Finally, let's take a look at the other stories making headlines in our Africa in 60 Seconds roundup. Former world record holder Wilson Kipsang lashed out at the Kenya Athletics Federation over the disclosure that he had missed an out-of-competition doping test. Athletics Kenya revealed that the IAAF had tried to test the runner on November the 11th, but he missed the exercise. In a statement, Kipsang claimed that the revelation was a violation of privacy and that the federation knew his whereabouts at the time of the test. Now, new evidence would seem to suggest that Cameroonian footballer Albert Ebose died from a beating and not from being struck in the head by a projectile. It had been previously thought that the Kabylie striker's death in August was the result of a thrown object, but a pathologist carrying out post-mortem tests at the request of the player's family said he had injuries to his body that suggested a physical attack. And finally, Paul True's next role has become a bit clearer. It has been confirmed that the former South Africa and Kenya Sevens coach will be joining rugby union side Western Province. True is now said to be in line to take over as defense coach with the side, while also working with the DHL Stormers. Well, that's it for this edition of Matchpoint. Remember, you can send your feedback to us. The email address is matchpoint@cctv.com. You can also visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa, or stay in touch on Twitter using the handle @CCTV News Africa. Thanks for watching. Once again, we leave you with some images from the sporting highlights this past week.